I've been calling the United States a narcissistic family for a decade now, and so I see it kind of, more and more people talking about this. But the family dynamics in a narcissistic family are present in our country. You have the Republicans as the narcissistic dad, you have the Democrats as the enabling mother who seems more interested in kind of like managing her relationship to the narcissist than protecting the children, right, which are the citizens. Then you have the Republicans and the conservatives who are the golden children, who find their safety in proximity to the narcissist, who are completely engulfed and have their identities completely compromised and taken over by the narcissistic fantasy world, the inverted reality of the narcissist. You have the scapegoat, which are minorities in this country, right? People speaking out, seeing the systems of oppression, trying to tell the truth and being punished for it. One of the dynamics that happens for a lot of us in narcissistic families too is we have a light bulb moment where we come to understand that our parents aren't just disordered, they aren't just apathetic, they aren't just living in an inverted reality where the reality of our lives don't exist, that they're actively sabotaging our lives, right? That narcissists are destructive to anything that threatens their like inverted delusional worldview. And so how that plays out here is very much like drained pool politics in our history, where in the times of segregation, when they desegregated pools, the white community would rather fill the pool with concrete than share it with black people. That's what's happened with the government. That they, before Obama, they loved the Constitution, they loved the word democracy so much, they were willing to pretend that we were spreading it all over the world by invading countries, right? By the time Obama was over, the democracy was a dirty word and they wanted a white king. They want a white king because they don't ever want to have a non-white president ever again. And so to me, like racism and profit motive are the two kind of dueling, invisible, narcissistic motivations that drive all of this. Because another way of looking at all of this is through the lens of profit motive. We have, a culture that has so much, there's all of the conscious racism, but I think what's important to understand as it relates to Obama triggering the country was that it triggered subconscious racism. There's an old Public Enemy album called Fear of a Black Planet, right? And so here in the United States, racism is part of our cultural conditioning, right? We all have it downloaded into us in certain ways or another, where our reality maps a lot of times identify black people as unsafe. It's as simple as like you're walking down a street late at night, a group of black kids comes walking towards you, you have one visceral reaction than you would have if a group of white kids came walking towards us. And so it's activated all of the conscious racism, but also all of the subconscious racism, all of the cultural conditioning, centuries of it, right? I mean, that's to me the scariest part, is that this isn't really about people operating under free will or making their own intentive choices, that it's about how people are conditioned to view the world, right? How much of our behavior exists on an unconscious level, and how a lot of racism or inherent bias exists in that unconscious level. And to me, that's the most dangerous thing that's been triggered. We can see the overt racism, the kind of hate-based racism coming a mile away, but what about the internal safety version, right? Where, think of that when people go into voting booths. I had people telling me Trump made them feel safe. A 27 count felon made them feel safe, but that was because the opposition was a black woman, or a black and Indian woman. And so it's really just important to understand all of the psychodynamics at work here, because we look at this through the lens of politics. I look at this through the lens of group psychology.